Fake Presidents, a real podcast about, well, you know.
Each episode will take a deep dive into a fictional American president from pop culture to see just how much fiction there really is.
I'm Eric Buckman, a former political consultant turned TV writer.
And I'm Ben Oren, a former journalist, sometimes speechwriter, and all-the-time TV producer.
And today, we're leaving behind movies and TV shows to go somewhere that, well, let's just say, hasn't been too kind to sitting presidents. Live theater.
Oh, sitting, yeah. I mean, especially the way he was sitting at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, since then, I heard presidents don't actually watch theater. They turn around and just watch the door. They listen to theater because it's bad luck.
That's the way the Kennedy Center was designed.
The presidential box at the Kennedy Center does not face the stage.
So speaking of untimely happenings for presidents, are we going to talk either of the two, like, presidential assassination prestige historical dramas set to come out? You have Manhunt on Apple TV Plus.
Do they have fake? Is it about a fake president being assassinated?
Again, it's not a fictional president, but it's it's an actor interpreting a president. They're impersonating the president. You can make an argument that we could do a special episode since we did like SNL presidents. Those weren't fictional presidents.
I guess we could. I think maybe for next President's Day, maybe it's we do an all Lincoln episode where we just look back on people who've played Lincoln.
Oh, that could be an interesting way to keep this podcast going for another 40-something odd years.
Yeah, well, we would have Daniel Day-Lewis's Lincoln. We would have the Lincoln vampire hunter Lincoln. Sure. We would have this Lincoln maybe in Manhunter. If I'm
I don't know how much he's in that one, Ben.
Well, he's in it for a little bit, and I'm sure there's some other.
There's the ape Lincoln, the ape Lincoln from Planet of the Apes, the Mark Wahlberg reboot.
Yes.
I have to stress, I didn't say Abe Lincoln. I said ape.
Ape Lincoln. No, I'm with you.
Yeah. And then the other one they cast, was it Michael Fassbender or Michael Shannon? I think it was Michael Shannon. They're doing the Garfield assassination on one of the prestige services.
Well, everybody knows that Michael Shannon is a spitting image of who?
I think I think he might be playing the assassin.
Oh, yeah. I didn't get to say who he was playing. A spitting image of the assassin. He looks like a stone cold killer. Actually, we saw him in theater late last year. We saw him in waiting for Godot.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, did he play Godot?
Godot. Come on, Eric.
No, it's like Gal Gadot?
Well, who isn't waiting for her?
I can think of a lot of people.
Yeah,
right now. No, it's Michael Shannon and Matthew McFadden from Succession to star in the Garfield assassination series for Netflix.
I would watch them if one of them was playing Odie and the other was playing Garfield in just a Garfield movie. I think those two actors would be phenomenal. I don't know who would play John, though.
So Shannon, you're right, is playing Garfield. McFadden is playing his assassination Gateau. And I did hear a podcast where they talked about the guy behind the assassination and how he was like, it's kind of interesting because at some point he gets involved in like a sex cult. And yeah.
Wait, they're like a late 1900s sex cult?
Yeah, well, aren't all those cults that made like Fine China and stuff all had like some weird sex thing going on where they're either like all against it to the point where they disappear because they don't have sex at all, or they're just basically the 18th century, the 19th century excuse for, bang, bang, orgy, orgy. Or they're like offshoots of like the Mormon church.
Mormons,
like, let's keep the polyamory thing, So I think it'll be a sexy Netflix series.
Keep the patriarchy, add lots of wives, and some magical stuff.
Yeah, magical plates.
Magical underwear.
My name is Andrew Shepard, and I am the president.
The play we're going to be talking about is the Tony-nominated play, POTUS, or Behind Every Great Dumbass, are 7 women trying to keep him alive.
Which you might have seen on Broadway if you live in New York or visited during its spring run. Or you might have seen here in LA if you've been here the last month and a half or so.
Yeah, it's been playing at the Geffen.
Spoiler alert, I haven't seen it, so I'm like you, audience. I was out of town during my chance to see it, or our chance to see it here in Los Angeles. So my ears are as virgin as yours are, my dear audience.
That's a lot of beautiful imagery.
Yeah.
For the people who come here for their ear kink, you just delivered exactly what they want, Eric. The imagery.
At what point do we just become an ASMR podcast for
ear kink?
Sure.
Look, we're trying to stand out in any way possible. We've been trying to do it with this Fake Presidents podcast. Some people listen to it. A lot of people don't. But if we discover that we're getting a lot of ears by talking about virgin ears, then, I think we'll need to pivot.
Yeah. Although, you realize, Ben, you just described every podcast. Some people listen to it. A lot of people don't.
Most people don't.
Yeah, so if for those of you who think, maybe I will check it out when it comes to play at my local performing arts center, maybe in South Florida. I can see how South Florida run for this.
Older people love this show.
But we'll let you know when the spoilers kick in. We're not there yet. In fact, before Ben gets to talk about his experience seeing the show, let's just sum it up. Like, what's it about?
We'll take it even a step back. It's a farce. It played on Broadway, scored Tony noms for two of its actresses, Julia White and Rachel Dratch.
Rachel Dratch, I'm a big fan of. I'm also a big fan of Vanessa Williams.
Yes, she was in it.
She's also in it. Suzy Nakamura, I believe, was in it. Huge fan of hers. She's been
correct.
And then
Julianne Hough,
or Huff, as my wife pronounces it.
Is that the correct way to say it?
I don't know. It had a good cast. The few reviews that I wanted to avoid spoilers when I thought I was going to see it. The few reviews I did read of it, even when they were down on some parts of the show, all of them were loving the cast.
Yes, it was a great cast. It was directed by Susan Stroman, who's a powerhouse. She's at this point you could call her like a legend. She was the original director of The Producers. She was originally a choreographer, so there's definitely like an elegance to the way that she stages plays.
So a lot of choreography and music in this show then.
No music, but choreography because it's a farce. You have a lot of slamming doors. You have a lot of near misses. That kind of comedy, I think, as you know, needs to be perfect. Every door slam needs to have meaning and needs to come so close for everything to get fucked up if that one person sees everything. And that kind of rhythm makes shows like this work.
I'm nodding my head. I haven't seen it, but I believe you.
But this production was directed by Jennifer Chambers. She has done a lot of work at the Geffen. Obviously, this was written by the same person. The one on Broadway, the one played here. There's only one writer. Her name's Selena Fillinger. She's also a writer on the most recent season of The Morning Show on Apple, a show that I myself have never watched.
Oh, my wife and I, we like that show. We're fans. We talk about Apple TV Plus on this podcast a lot, I feel like, more so than any other streamer.
Well, I think the kind of audience that we bring like that like six-figure audience, you know what I mean? Like that high-end.
Oh, yeah. A lot of overlap.
A lot of drip from the people who listen to us.
You know, a fun way you could describe Apple TV Plus. Some people watch it. Most people don't.
A lot of people don't. Most people don't. But Selena, she wrote this play when she was 23, about 5-6 years ago. She was inspired by the former guy's infamous quote about grabbing women by that part.
Okay.
And this is what was in the playbill from her, the author's note, the playwright's note. After Trump was elected and the data revealed how many white women had voted for him, what began as a screed coalesced into a contemplation on culpability, the ways in which we are complicit in our own subjugation and the subjugation of others. Many regional theaters felt that my crass play about femme rage was too provocative for their audiences, and it sat dormant for several years. But in 2022, well into Biden's first term, POTUS premiered on Broadway. So that's what we're going into. It's definitely a play already we know that's inspired by the Trump presidency.
Interesting.
As the title says, it's about 7 women who are behind the scenes of the current POTUS, who is unnamed. But the rest of the characters do have names, Eric. I'll do a quick run through of the cast for you.
Sure.
There's Ido Agayare, who plays Chris, a reporter for like a HuffPo type organization. We have Alexandra Billings, who plays Margaret, the FLOTUS. We have Lauren Blumenfeld, who plays Stephanie, the president's secretary. Sharon Cochran, who's Harriet, the chief of staff. Celeste Den, who plays Jean, the press secretary. Jane Levy.
Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist.
Yes, who plays Dusty, the president's young lover. However, that night that I went to see it, she was under the weather, so we got her understudy, Joy Dons. And rounding it out is Deirdre Lovejoy, who plays Bernadette, the president's criminal sister.
Oh.
Yeah.
Before you tell me any more about it,
Yes.
I wanted to play a little game to get us going here. I couldn't see the play, but I did get to see, and I'm texting you them right now, a whole bunch of pictures of the sets. So I wanted to look at the portraits
Yeah.
and see if I could determine,
Oh.
based solely on the set decoration, what I thought the party of the president might be.
Although she says Trump inspired it, I think there's other inspiration.
Okay, so I just sent you the 4 photos that I was able to find. One of them, and by the way, if any of these you notice are like, that's not a set, that's just created just for like promotional purposes, let me know. I'm assuming these are all sets that were actually used in the show itself. One of them is the typical JFK in his iconic pensive pose.
Yes.
You know, the looking down one. JFK, I'll mention, a Democrat. There's one in which you can see Rutherford B. Hayes and Franklin Pierce. So I thought that was interesting because Pierce is a Democrat and Hayes is a Republican. You have another set where you can see Teddy Roosevelt on a horse. So it's Teddy Roosevelt in his, say, Rough Rider phase.
Rough Rider. Stop, drop.
Another one of Eisenhower, a Republican. I should mention Roosevelt's also Republican. Eisenhower, a Republican, in his military dress. Which is
beautiful. His military dress is like flowing and beautiful, and the decolletage that he's showing is
the
just
train's amazing. Yes. But although that said, I've definitely seen like the official oil portrait of him in a suit too. So I imagine there are many different types of portraits of this guy, and they've chosen the military one, or at least I'll say this fake president has chosen a military one. And then there's another portrait in which you can see 4 men sitting, having a discussion. So this one, I had to look it up, figure out what it is. It's called The Peacemakers. And it features Abraham Lincoln, a Republican, sitting in a chair, leaning forward, hand on chin, as he talks with Generals William T. Sherman and Ulysses S. Grant, and then Admiral David Porter. The portrait depicts a meeting of these men on a steamer ship just before the conclusion of the Civil War. And so to tabulate, you get basically 2 Democrats and a whole bunch of Republicans.
And what does it say to you?
Okay, well, the interesting about Franklin Pierce is although he's a Democrat, and a Northern Democrat at that, he's basically pretty famous for wanting to give anti-abolitionists everything they wanted in the lead up to the Civil War. He very much felt like any talk of doing away with slavery was just going to anger the people down south and lead to trouble. So let's not even talk about doing away with slavery. So he was an appeaser of sorts.
Yes.
Yeah. And then the rest are all post-Civil War presidents, I guess, except, of course, for Lincoln. I mean, he was post-Civil War for like a month.
A little bit. He had some time to bask in the glow.
Yeah. But, a lot of Republicans.
To look forward to the future, to say like, hey, I could take a little break now. How about, you know what? I haven't seen any theater in a while.
Yeah.
I deserve it.
So, yeah, JFK, of course, a Democrat, but he's a Democrat that Republicans will like. O'Reilly was a big fan of this guy, Bill O'Reilly. I don't know if it's because of his personal life. I don't know. They like the whole Maryland thing.
Like the glamour, the youth. They like that his dad bought him the presidency to a certain extent. They like the way that like he found a way for dead people to vote. All these things are things that like inspire them.
Yeah. They like his nephew?
They love his nephew.
Yeah. I mean, that's just it. A big part of the whole QAnon thing has been JFK Jr. coming back to lead the QAnon movement. It's this weird obsession with like owning him as this ultra conservative icon.
Well, all those people in the 90s were huge fans of George Magazine. So it makes sense.
So anyway, technically, based on the title alone, I can refer to any number of U.S. presidents. That's why I was thinking that to give this play a more timeless quality, it might have had a time period and a president and a party that you could never really nail down. But based on the portraits, I was going to go Republican, definitely. And now you tell me if I'm right or wrong.
I mean, we don't get into the politics of the president in that way.
Really? Interesting.
But if I give you enough facts throughout this little talk, maybe it'll change your tune. I don't know.
Maybe.
Once you hear about the women behind him, the women who are trying to keep him
7 women
alive. 7 women.
And a lot of presidents don't have 7 women in key roles around them.
No, I mean, if we were to have a Mike Pence presidency, who knows? He could never be alone with one. So,
I mean, that's just if you have enough of them. Do you still need the chaperone role? Like how many women have to outnumber you before you have to have a chaperone there?
He'll talk to Mother about it.
Even like Obama, he didn't have a female chief of staff.
No, I mean, nobody's had a female chief of staff. Well, except in this play where we do have a woman chief of staff.
Yeah. So anything more you could say without revealing any spoilers?
The only way to talk about this show is to deliver spoilers.
Okay. So for those of you who are planning on seeing this in the near future, you can jump to later in the episode using the bookmark chapter feature that we've done so that you can come back and join us for our post POTUS.
To find out who did the music and the art. Yeah. I know everybody wants to know.
And you guys do know we do a post credits bit every episode, right?
Well, but they also want to know, they're like, are we able to subscribe to this? I don't know. Are they ever going to tell us? Well, fast forward to the end and we could tell you whether you could subscribe to our podcast or not.
Yeah. So let's get in the spoiler territory.
Get off my plane.
Well, the play starts with the press secretary and the chief of staff talking about how the president had just called his wife a real see you next Tuesday.
Oh.
During a press conference with her in the room.
How's that even happen?
She's there and he says she's a real Aunt Carol. She's an Aunt Carol. I think that's a way to also say it. She's a real Aunt Carol. And the reason he did it is because he has this painful anal abscess.
Okay.
That's preventing him from sitting down, and she wants him to get surgery, but he just hopes it'll heal himself. So they're in a fight over that.
Interesting.
And this happens in front of a delegation of other countries. So throughout the rest of the morning, the chief of staff and the press secretary are trying to spin it, but instead everything goes from bad to worse for the women because Bahrain is offended that the president would say such a thing.
Well, I'm sure many countries would be offended by the use of that.
Yes, but as the chief of staff points out, they oppress women left and right. That they don't let them vote. They don't let I mean, they do think women are that. They just don't say it in the way that the president does. So everything is kind of falling apart foreign policy wise. And then into the White House walks in Dusty, who is the president's lover, who is pregnant.
I'm here about the position.
What position?
The position.
Why are you winking?
They told me to be discreet.
Also showing up is Bernadette, the president's sister, who has a LoJack on her ankle, and she's angling for a presidential pardon because she's a drug dealer.
Girl, you gotta get some hotter interns. Your whole staff looks like sweaty Beanie Babies.
Everybody's worried that the president is going to let everything that he's done over his first term fall apart, over helping out his sister.
So he's in a second term or about
He's in his first term.
And it's still in his first term, okay.
Between granting a pardon to his dirtbag sister, and then also with Dusty's also responsible for the anal abscess because she's into a little bit of the ass play.
It's just interesting that we're still in the world of Trump here because this play could have been written in the 1990s.
Yes, it could have been.
Just those, what you told me.
Yes. Why could it have been written in the 90s, Eric?
Well, you have Roger Clinton.
Yeah.
As the criminal adjacent brother of the president. I don't know if he was ever officially put in jail or arrested, but he had his brushes with the law. And then you also had some well-known dalliances, Jennifer Flowers, Monica Lewinsky.
Specifically with Monica Lewinsky, the ass play is in the Star Report.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I didn't read that. I listened to the abridged version on an audiobook.
It's in the Star Report. Ken Starr, upstanding Christian, literally got to the bottom of what happened.
Is that verified or is that conjecture on the part of Ken Starr?
I don't know. We got to go to the Star Report. It's in the Star Report. So all of that's happening while this is going on. The journalist Chris is trying to get a story from the chief of staff, and so this is where we're getting a lot of like the door slamming, people hearing things that they shouldn't hear. And also during this, we have Stephanie, the secretary, who speaks 5 languages, who has a tremendous education, who has some self-esteem issues.
Oh.
Yeah. And she accidentally drinks a lot of Bernadette's PCP-like drug stash that for some reason she brought into the White House.
Okay.
So she's tripping balls.
Are you having a stroke? I am power stancing. I am decreasing my cortisol and increasing my testosterone, thus increasing my confidence.
And as all these women wind up in the same room together, they're trying to stop the journalist from taking the stories that has heard thus far, with Dusty being pregnant, with this pardon potentially being on the horizon, with drugs being in the White House.
Yeah.
And so she tries to fight her way out of the room she's in by holding this bust of the suffragist Alice Paul. And she winds up through an amazing bout of comedy and choreography, accidentally throws it out a door, and it hits the president in the head.
Off stage.
Off stage. You just see his little legs.
Oh, do you hear? Ugh!
You just hear the thump. And then you start the second act with, "We killed the president."
Are you serious? Are you fucking serious?
I'm fucking serious.
President's dead?
This is what they believe.
So the title is literal.
Yes.
It's not behind every great dumbass are 7 women trying to keep him alive. That's not politically alive. It's alive.
That is correct. But anyway, so the second act has a lot of blood. They try to cover it up for some reason instead of just throwing the journalist under the bus, because she is the one who did throw this giant statue at the president. They try to cover it up as being a suicide. They enlist Dusty to help cover things up with the Secret Service by giving blowjobs. So she accidentally gives a blowjob, though, to these 2 veterans.
That's funny.
We don't see this. This all happens off stage. Then she does happen to give blowjobs to the Secret Service, which Secret Service members getting blowjobs. I mean, that was happening during the Obama administration. There wasn't that whole thing in Brazil?
I'm going to guess that's been going on a lot longer.
Oh, yeah, that's true. We all give Obama too much credit sometimes. His Secret Service agents did not invent getting blowjobs on the clock. But what it turns out, though, president not dead. He alive. And then the final scene takes place at the Female Models of Leadership Conference, a.k.a. FML.
I get it. Like fuck my life.
Like fuck my life. That the good thing about that joke in the theater that's filled with a bunch of LA theater, maybe all theater in general, it skews a little older.
Yeah.
A lot of gray hairs.
Yeah.
That joke needed to be explained.
A lot of whispering.
Yes. Like they all understood the see you next Tuesday. They love that joke.
Well, because that goes back to like the 70s. That's like they invented that line.
Yeah, and anything where it's like people are saying naughty words, like super naughty words.
Yeah.
Old people love it. Fuck my life needed some explanation. So the president is about to give a speech to help shore up the women's vote.
I have bullied 500 feminists into attending tonight's dinner. I have written 37 drafts of POTUS' speech to try to keep our female base from shrinking literally smaller than a nutsack in the snow.
And this is where we get some pathos. This is where we get some emotion. Because Harriet, the chief of staff, this is where she finds out from Dusty, the lover, that the president was planning on firing her. Because everybody's been saying that she's the real brains in the operation. Oh. And the president, his ego won't allow it. And also during this time, Dusty finds out that the president, she's not the only one that he's been banging.
Well, he's got a wife, right?
Yeah,
Bang
the
his
wife.
wife?
The wife is there, and she's just like,
Not me.
not me. And of course, she is kind of like a Hillary Clinton type
Right.
woman, very well accomplished, very well spoken, not very well liked. The president's still got the head wound. He's determined to go out on stage. He looks like he's going to fall. And for the first time, all these women, they're ready to watch him fall. And that's how the play ends. Mm. So, it's about the patriarchy, these women who keep him afloat, and it tries to make you feel sorry for all of these women.
Yes.
But the truth is, anybody who works for a person who's kind of a monster is culpable and complicit. And that's kind of where the heart of the play kind of falls apart for me.
The heart of the play. What about the humor? Did the humor work for you at all?
I don't want to talk about the comedy of it because that's not what we do.
It's not what we do. Yeah. Also, we can at least let the jokes be a surprise for everybody going to see it. at your local theater. Support your local theater. If this show comes to you, go see it. Support fake presidents, even if they're not actually cast and on stage.
I would check to see if there's a deal on tickets.
Do a Sunday matinee.
Yeah, do a Sunday matinee. If they do like BOGO. If there's BOGO, you should go. BOGO, you go POTUS, is what I say.
I will say, I feel like the in the thing now, because I saw a show, I saw Peter Pan Goes Wrong.
Yeah.
And then I know currently, or maybe it just wrapped up, like Gutenberg on Broadway, they do the thing where they have like a celebrity guest come in and do a run of shows for like a walk-on type part.
Yeah.
Like, how cool would it have been if they actually had like a different celebrity fake president, every week or so?
It would with the massive head wound, that would have been great. What a wonderful surprise.
Because like the one I saw for Peter Pan Goes Wrong, it was Bradley Whitford speaking of fake presidents. Yeah, he was the guy. Very good, actually. They did a great job of tailoring the role so that they feel as involved as they possibly can be on 2 days worth of prep.
Yeah. For this, all you would need is like head wound, come across the stage.
Yeah, like Dana Carvey, massive head wound Harry.
Yeah.
SNL prosthetics.
That was a great sketch.
He probably smells my dog.
But yeah, the president is definitely a mashup of Trump and Clinton, especially because of, the butt play and the highly accomplished wife.
And the foul mouth, that
Yes.
locker room talk.
But it's otherwise, I think it's kind of hard to say about the politics of it all. I mean, I think politically he does fall on the Republican side of the wall, but everything else kind of doesn't make sense for the choices that are made throughout.
You mentioned Bahrain. I mean, that's an interesting country. I mean, it sounds like they wanted to pick Bahrain because they wanted to have a country with a horrible record for women's rights, commenting on the vulgarity of the term against a woman. That said, politically, Bahrain is in a very strategic position when it comes to negotiating resource allocation in that part of the world.
They mentioned from Bahrain to France to Israel, everybody gets quasi name checked as this foreign policy meeting falls apart. But I think actually what makes me think that this president is a Republican is because of his need to win over the women's vote. To have a conference called the Female Models of Leadership to talk about how he is there for the women. To me, like that kind of pleading comes across as something a Republican needs to do.
Yeah. Well, only because it's an area of perceived weakness then.
Yeah.
The idea that he doesn't have the soccer moms locked up as much as he would hope, considering his strengths in the suburbs overall, or at least the more uneducated parts of the suburbs.
Yeah. But one more thing. The thing that the play gets wrong is that the women who work for men like this are not rewarded and that they are just used and put aside. But the truth is that the women behind men like this tend to be rewarded. They get high-profile commentator gigs. See, Kayleigh McEnany. They become governor, like Sarah Huckabee Sanders. And on the Clinton side, they become senators. They become Secretary of State. They become presidential nominees. By backing men who just, in the most cynical way, use them.
Right.
It's ignored because they know that at the end game, the cachet that they are getting from being close to power, from that proximity to power, will always pay off at the end.
Right. I mean, were there any like a Kellyanne Conway stand-in amongst this group, or could you discern any individual parallels to reality beyond just the archetype of First Lady, Chief of Staff, Mistress?
No, the First Lady is definitely Hillary kind of stand-in. The other characters, no, not really. Honestly, not.
How dare you come into this office and bark at me like some little junkyard dog? I am the President of the United States.
So, yeah, I kind of wish I had seen it with my notepads just so that I could try to figure out the purpose of all those various countries being represented at this one meeting. What does Israel have in common with Bahrain? And then whoever else was there. I feel like we could have a lot of fun trying to really nail down what possibly could have been the topic of discussion.
Yeah, but also the what could possibly a president who starts a day by calling his wife
The C word.
the C word on camera, and none of this is played for like, well, maybe he's getting a little too old for office. Maybe he has like syphilitic dementia, like you know, like.
Well, that's just it. What's interesting is, okay, so if we go back in time to the actual late 90s, the pilot of West Wing, which we have not officially talked about, but my memory there is the big scandal that sets the ball in motion there is when one of the presidential lackeys goes on TV and says the president has a secret plan to fight inflation. The spontaneous utterance that becomes a crisis to try to quell. Like, to me, that's actually my favorite kind of a political storyline. That's, works so well in the West Wing. That's the hook here. It's something I feel like a lot of shows don't do too much because I guess it feels like the stakes are small. But that said, when we've seen in real politics, especially in the current president, like every single turn of phrase, every possible mispronunciation goes under a microscope to such a high degree now. It's definitely a rich area.
But also, let's be honest, if this character is based on the former guy says something like this, it only props him up with his base. Like, it doesn't change, it doesn't move the needle at all. You get a couple of think pieces, but it's the same sort of like rinse and repeat story that's done for 4 years. He says something horrible. The people on his side are like, yes, he talks without thinking because he doesn't need the teleprompter. He doesn't need this. He tells it how it is. This is how real Americans talk. And then you have the other side saying, this is disgusting what America has become, what he's turned American politics into, And it's another like, well, just fill in the blank story for what this guy said again today. Like it means nothing anymore.
Right. Well,
it's no longer, these things are no longer problems that need to be solved. It's just another article, another piece of content to go on the feed until the next thing happens.
I very clearly remember where I was the day the Access Hollywood tape came out. Do you remember where you were, Ben?
Yeah, I was in my apartment being like, we got him. We got him.
Yeah.
This is over. We got him.
You know where I was?
Where?
I'm watching. We were watching the tape, the people I was working with, and we're like, wait a second, that bus, that looks familiar. It was driving up to the building we were in at that moment, because we were at the place where Access Hollywood was filmed.
No way.
Yeah. There's still like life-size cardboard cutouts of Billy Bush like all around the building that you just stumble into one day when you turn the wrong corner. Like, whoa, sorry, Billy.
This is a presidential favor.
Do we have a legacy? Approval ratings? Is it possible to even do any of our usual stuff for this?
I think this president in this world, if he falls off the stage at the end, I think he dips below our typical 40-something, for a real president who's done nothing but have like one of the shittiest days. He called his wife real Aunt Carol. His foreign policy got messed up. He almost died. He finds out that he's going to have a baby with his young lover.
Is she keeping it? Do we know?
We don't know that.
Oh, we don't know. Okay.
And this man falls off the stage in front of all these women. He's got to dip into the 30s.
Does he get reelected?
Not at all.
And his legacy is?
He fell off the stage.
He's the new Henry Ford? Not Henry Ford.
He's
wrong Ford.
Gerald Ford.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Maybe as he's falling off the stage, he's like, the Jews. They did this to me.
Oh, I feel like I have to almost explain that for people who are like, wait. Henry Ford was a famous anti-Semite for anyone out there who are just he was
a famous anti-Semite who happened to start a car company.
Yeah, he was such an anti-Semite that writings of his and writings of people who he paid to like write op-ed pages in the newspapers that he owned were so anti-Semitic that in the 1920s they inspired a certain future Fuhrer of Germany to become more anti-Semitic and like make that his thing. So just wondering how that played out. It went Ford first, then Hitler. Yeah, it's kind of building one on top of the other.
Yeah.
Anywho, this has been Fake Presidents.
Yes. I've been Ben Oren.
I've been Eric Buckman. Music by Johnny Sadoff.
Yes, artwork by Ann Hecker.
You can email us fakepresidents@gmail.com.
You could see us we're on X, are we?
The account's still there.
Okay. I mean, you could be like, oh, you could click on it and be like, oh, why am I here? Instead, I'm going to go to Instagram. We're at
Instagram
at fake_presidents.
Same thing for Threads. We don't have an actual account on Blue Sky. I'm there. Eric Buckman. What else is there?
Rate, review, subscribe.
Yeah, do that. Please do. Rate, review, subscribe. It's been a while since we've gotten a new review. If you leave a 5-star review, not only will I read it, but so will my mom, and she'll be really proud. Yeah. Okay. I guess that's the next time. That's it. See you next week for Civil War.
Maybe we should do an old school movie before then.
Maybe.
Bye. I learned something going to Westwood to see the show.
What'd you learn?
I learned that the parking structure closes at 10:30. And so if you get there at 11:15, you cannot get your car back, not until the next morning, because on Sundays in Westwood, it doesn't open till noon.
Oh, my God. That what happened to you and Melissa?
Yes, that's exactly what happened. Yes, we had a Uber home from Westwood. Then I had a Uber back on Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, to get my car. Luckily, it only cost an extra $6 at the parking lot, minus the Uber ride back to Silver Lake, and then the Uber ride from Silver Lake to Westwood again.
I'm not going to lie. It's not a bad deal for overnight parking in Los Angeles.
No, if everybody knows, and they will not. It says they might tow you, but you know what? They don't.
Well, they didn't.
They'll just close.
I'd say you got lucky, Ben, but obviously you did not.
No, it was not. I don't know if that was the best case scenario.